Okay, so I'm back. Hopefully, Carol will be able to get on now. This is quite new to me, so yeah, just going through a few little trials. So we're on my page, but you still should be able to get on if you've got the link for the event as well. So fingers crossed that she can join us now. Aha. Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well, yeah.
Oh my goodness. That was fun.
It doesn't matter
Hello, everyone.
how many times you try and do something.
No.
It still gets the better of you, doesn't it? Although it hasn't, because we're here.
We're here? Yeah, that's all that matters.
Okay.
How you doing?
Yeah, I think I'm all right now. Lovely to see you, Carol.
You too.
Okay, so I did a brief introduction, although I'm not really sure what anybody heard or if it actually saved or recorded. So this is my brand new series, Let's Talk About Creativity. And today my special guest is Carol Barwick.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Okay, so first of all, can you remember when we met and kind of, you know, what it was about, how it was, briefly?
When we met right at the beginning,
Yes.
how we met?
Yes.
If I say no, I find that interesting because I think when you meet on Facebook, you often don't remember quite how it all happens. It's all a bit ethereal, isn't it? Someone's in a group, someone else is in a group, and suddenly you're kind of connecting with somebody on a level you didn't expect, and meeting at their house and having a cup of tea, and you don't really know how it happened. So I remember that you came to our house and had a cup of tea.
I did.
And I know that we met on the Mums in Business group, but quite how it all happened is a bit of a blur, which I quite like.
Yeah. So I joined Mums in Business not last year, the year before, around November time, and I was quite anxious and quite nervous, and it took me quite a while to reach out to anybody. And I think I'd kind of sort of expressed how nervous I were in one of the posts, and then all of a sudden quite a few people reached out, and you was one of those. And then we just got chatting, and then it was like, oh, we've got a lot in common, why not have a cuppa together? And that's how it all started.
Lovely. Yeah, I definitely remember having a good cup of tea with you. That was really nice.
Yeah, it was lovely. And to find out kind of what you do and like what's been going on for you and things, because it's been quite a journey for you, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, particularly over the last 3 years, definitely been a journey. Yeah, I, along with the rest of the world, 3 years ago, got COVID, but possibly not along with the rest of the world, didn't really recover from it. So I got COVID quite mildly in March 2020, and it was just a bit of a cough, and it wasn't great. I didn't enjoy it, but it you know, I wasn't hospitalized or anything like so many people were. But what I then discovered was that it was taking me a long time to recover from things. So I was getting very breathless walking up and down stairs. It was taking energy to do very normal things, and taking me a long time to recover. And the first time I realized that something was really quite wrong was when I tried, like so many other choirs around the country, to do something on Zoom. And I just did like a Zoom thing. We had about 20, 4 people from choir, I think.
Yeah.
And at the end of the session, I was exhausted, and it took me 2 weeks to get out of bed after that. And I realised that something was wrong. And then after that, I thought, oh, I'm getting better. And I went for a walk with my son, all very normal. And it took me 2 weeks to recover from that. And that was when I realised that something was very different. And yeah, that life didn't feel quite how it did. And sadly, the more times I got COVID, the more it left me with more problems. So I'm in a very different place health-wise to where I was before COVID.
Yeah, and that must have been really difficult for you, because you was quite active, wasn't you? And like you were involved in a lot of things, and you've had to really kind of not stop what you're doing, but just adapt it a little bit so that it works for you. So tell me about kind of the choir, because obviously we're both fellow choir members. So tell me about your choir.
So I've had my choir for 9 years in June, and it's a community choir in Pudsey. So it's in the Pudsey Wellbeing Centre. I'm brought in by the Pudsey Wellbeing Charity, and we've seen so many people come in over the years. Everybody loves to tell me that they can't sing. That's the first thing that they say as soon as they walk through the door for the first time, and then they just kind of stay for years and become family. And at one point, just before COVID, I had 3 choirs. So I had a community choir, I had a youth choir at Pudsey Wellbeing as well, and then I also had an intergenerational choir in Batley. So yeah, I had quite a lot of choirs. Oh, Ruth's joined us. Hiya, Ruth.
Yes.
Ruth is one of my long-term choir members and a real supporter of Ray's. Thanks for watching, Ruth.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hi, Becky, as well.
Oh, we've got Becky watching as well. I think maybe you can see your people and I can see mine. That's a bit weird.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, sorry about that. Go on.
Yes. So, yeah, 9 years.
Wow, that is a long time. Yeah. And have you seen it evolve over that time?
Well, I had. So, again, just before COVID, I think we were doing about 14 or 15 events a year. Is that about right, Ruth? I think we did at least 3 or 4 just at Christmas time alone, and then we did a lot of community events and socials and things like that. We were really buzzing. Then of course when COVID hit, quite aside from me not being well, obviously choirs couldn't meet anyway. And so I really didn't know quite how it was going to look, but 3 amazing ladies, Sarah Greaves and Sarah Rustling and Christine Marshall, took the choir on for me, and they did it in the most difficult time. They were amazing. They really kept it going when I couldn't. And so a few people managed to come. And then around this time last year, through a series of events that I might go into a bit later on, I realised that I was going to be able, with lots of support, to get back to choir myself. And since then, we've seen about 15 people every week, which has been fantastic. So yeah, so the evolve is interesting, because I think we always think of evolving as growing and growing and not stopping, but actually in this case it grew, then really diminished, and then grew all over it over again, I think.
Yeah, and for you, I think what's so important for you is that you're still able to take an active part in choir, because knowing you, I know that you're so passionate about it, which brings me on to, so obviously this is all about creativity. So I'd love to know how you use creativity in your life. I know that's so vast, so let's kind of look at like your personal life to start with. Okay.
So I've always been creative. I've been creative since I was really little. My background is my childhood was really quite difficult. My mum had mental health issues throughout my whole life, and she was very poorly. And when I was 9, she was admitted to a psychiatric hospital for a year. And through that time, I found that my creativity and also my Christian faith really helped to support me and guide me through it, really. I used to write a lot of songs, I still do, but they weren't very good when I was 9. They were more about mice, I seem to remember, and random things. And yeah, and I have a little brother who's 7 years younger than me. And as we grew up, we found that we could be creative together as well. We used to do, as we got older, used to do a lot of kind of comedy sketches together, particularly if once my mum had come back and was integrated back into the family, it was very difficult. And we found that by doing little comedy sketches and keeping the humour in it, we could kind of manage what was going on, really. And my mum and dad were both incredibly creative, so it was no surprise that it was kind of a creative household, but we weren't all painting and drawing all the time. Dad certainly did. Mine was more poems and the word side of it, whereas my brother and my dad particularly were more the arty crafty side of it. And anyone that's seen on my Raise page a recent picture I did of my friend Rebecca will know just how bad I am at drawing. Actually, if Ruth is still on here, if I can just tell this story. So Ruth's husband is an artist, very good artist. So he's one of those artists that you can say, Luke, draw an alien coming out of a Venus flytrap with a hat that's got an elephant on it, and Luke will draw it. He's really clever. And we used to do a Christian club together. And so the kids would ask Luke to draw, and he'd just be able to draw whatever, just straight away. And then Luke was like my intern, and of course eventually he left. And so the kids just presumed that I could also draw like Luke. So they would say, Carol, draw this, draw that. And over Easter one year, they were saying, Carol, draw a chicken. And I was like, I can't really draw. But you're creative. Well, yes, but I can't really draw. Please, go on, draw a chicken. Luke can draw a chicken. I know Luke can draw a chicken, but I'm not Luke. No, but yeah, you Luke, go on, you can draw a chicken. So eventually I drew a chicken, and they just went, what's that? This is that's not a chicken. No. You asked me to draw a chicken. This is my version of a chicken. You can't draw. No, I told you I couldn't draw. But Luke's got a lot to answer for.
Oh, Ruth's still here, so I'm sure that she'll be hearing your story.
Oh, I've said that to Luke many times. But I think sometimes people think creativity is painting and drawing, and that's it. Or even kind of poems and that kind of thing, and they think, well, then I'm not creative because I can't do that. But we know that's not true, don't we, Sam?
Absolutely. And that kind of takes me back to like my childhood, where I completely blocked creativity for loads of reasons, just how my childhood was and how I was finding things really difficultly, and just completely shut it out. And then all of a sudden, a lot of years later, now it's like, oh yeah, I can be creative. And so many people have told me over the years, particularly in college, Sam, you're creative. And I'm like, no, I am not. But actually everything I've done over time, and particularly a lot of it around working with children from different ages, it's made me realise now, oh my God, I am creative. And being able to use it in my life has just really kind of made my life so different. Do you know what I mean? Almost larger and bigger and more bolder and more colourful. And it just lights me up so much just saying the word creativity. It's like, yes, it's wonderful, isn't it? It's so beautiful. Yeah. And it just comes to us from so many different ways. So yeah, absolutely, I totally can resonate with what you're saying, and I love your story about the chicken. I think that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. So So that's kind of like your personal life and like the difficulties that you went through, and when you realised that. I love that you were able to do comedy with, comedy sketches with your brother, and that almost kept your spirits up as well, didn't it, when things were difficult? And that's really special, and that's having that talent as well, and that like realisation that we can find ways to help ourselves feel better in difficult situations. So that's so beautiful. So tell me about your business and where you are now, because I'll go into what we did together, but I'd love to hear, I'd love you to share with everybody. I'm just going to say hi to everybody who's joined. Thank you so much so far. If you're joining live, give us a wave, and if you're joining later, give us #replay. Over to you, Carol.
Yeah. Hello to Elaine. I can say Elaine Beadle's watching, so hello. I don't want to ignore people. I run a business called Raising Confidence, Inspiring Creativity. It's gone through a number of different names over the years as we have evolved and changed what we do, but in essence it's always raising people's self-esteem and confidence, and it's always been through music or song, and it's always been about empowering people. But it took on a little bit of a different life probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
Just a handful of my choir and I went to a mental health event in Croydon, and we ended up singing a song that I'd written. And at the end, obviously, you like to have feedback, and people often kind of like will comment and say what they've got from it. My friend Sarah sent me a text, and she basically said something along the lines of, "Thank you for enabling me to make a difference to others." And I just thought, wow. Okay, yeah, that is absolutely Raise in a nutshell. Yeah. I don't want us to do anything in Raise that doesn't then go passed on to somebody else. So I want everything that I do, every word that I utter, to be to have the potential to be shared with somebody else and kind of make a difference. And so before COVID, I had 5 story time sessions, I think. There are always going to be stories that come out of this, Sam, so just stop me if I'm kind of rambling. But the way the story sessions happened were when my son was 3 months old, my mum passed away. So I was dealing with what I realised now is probably PTSD as well as grief. And I used to find it really difficult to focus on my son and do everything that I kind of needed to do. And so I wrote songs to help me do it. So I wrote a bath song, and then we wrote potty training song. I wrote a grumpy song. And they're just little mini songs, probably about 45 seconds to a minute long, something like that, something that would get stuck in my head, so that when I didn't really feel like bathing him, I would just go through the motion, but it would make sure that he was clean and happy and I'd done what I needed to do. And I then realised that actually there were quite a few story time sessions around, and that I could use my songs without any problem about copyright or anything like that. Wouldn't have to get any permission from anybody, and I could start story time sessions. So I started doing one, and as I said, it evolved, and I eventually had 5. And so I had 5 story time sessions using the songs that I'd written, 3 choirs, and then I did quite a lot of work in schools around transition from year 6 to year 7, a project called High School Heroes that I put together.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I love doing that. So that was all before COVID, and then obviously COVID came along, and along with all the lockdown and things like that, as we said at the beginning, I got poorly. So now the way that Raise looks is I can manage 1 choir with help from some access to work money that helps me to get transport and things like that to choir. And I do a podcast, which is great because I can just do it from here. I can use my mic, and I've got my laptop, and it means I can do it whenever I've got energy. And I also just started a jingle writing service. So like the kids' songs, but shorter and snappier and with a specific reason. And I think, Sam, that will segue beautifully into what you're about to say next. If it doesn't, there's a real issue.
No, not at all. You are so right. I love that introduction back to me. So yeah, I'm just going to say hi, Joanne. Lovely to see you. Hi, Charlie Ann. Lovely to see you as well. And I think I've seen Nisha as well. So hi.
And
Thank you for joining us.
Joanne Carter Fulton, who's saying it all sounds amazing. So thank you, Joanne.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. So yeah, that's really recent. How long did it take us? Not that long. Was it about a month or something? Maybe less?
To create the jingle?
Yes.
Yeah, about a month. You're giving it all away, Sam.
Oh yes. Oops, gone the wrong way around. That's nervous energy. So yeah, so Carol was like advertising, oh, not really advertising, but sharing her passion and saying that, you know, if you wanted a jingle for your business and things like that. And quite a few of my friends and fellow MIBS ladies were like interested. So I'm like, oh, why not? Well, I said a yes, but then I was like, why have I said yes? I haven't got a clue. I really didn't have a clue. And this is what I sometimes do. I step forward, go, yes, I'd love to do this. And then the brain goes blank and then nothing happens. And I'm like, okay. Yes, I'd love a business for my jingle, but I don't really know what. So anyway, we got our heads together, didn't we? You asked for some words. So I used like my 5 value words, and then just a little bit of info like about my business. So a bit of a bio about what I do and who I support, that side of it all. And then together we decided that it was going to be around kind of empathy, because that's the real kind of thing that means so much to me. And it's lovely to see Charlie Ann, because obviously you will know, being in the same group as you, that obviously we're empaths. So I started thinking, oh yes, it's not just empathy, how I support the children and young people I work with, but also being an empath myself, meaning highly sensitive, but also really kind of tuning into people's emotions. That actually, yes, this had become more important and actually more aligned with it than I'd ever realised. So we got our heads together, and then you says, well, since you're in a choir, Sam, and since you sing, would you like to sing? And again, I nodded and went, yes, of course. And then went, oh, bugger, what have I done?
Now I have to do it.
Oops. Then I was like, yeah, I've got to go with it. So anyway, so I did. Oh my goodness me. What's the name of it that you called it? Is it Band Lab or something like
yes.
that?
Band Lab, yeah.
Yeah. So on I went there and I was doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. It was like tech 20, tech 30. I was like, nope, this has got to be right. But I could only record so many. Anyway, eventually, like, do you know what? I've got to stop. Just whatever. Just send it in. So then, yeah. And then out of all that, almost chaos on my side of it all, we created this beautiful jingle where you sing, then I sing. And it's just so wonderful. And it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's just so special. I felt so humbled to be able to work with you, Carol, because I was the first person who'd like pluck that courage up. I'm not saying people have to do that, but it just meant a lot to me, and it was really special to me. So yeah, that's something. And since then, it's actually made my business come to life so much more, and me, because I've changed. And like, I just remind myself, and sometimes like when in little posts and things like that, it's like, yeah, bring it to life. So it's called Bring It to Life. And it's just so beautiful, because Carol is so talented that she knew how to create my chaos into this wonderful jingle. So I just have to say a huge thank you to you for believing in me that actually you can do this. You could do this. And that comes to the creativity, doesn't it, really? About that, like, you know, my creative mind, one side of it, my right side were like, yeah, let's go with this. And my left side went, oh, no, it's not happening. But combine them together and you get something so beautiful that it's just so touching. And yeah, and then I asked one of the other ladies, I'm just going to mention her name in case she's on here, Carly Murphy, thank you so much, putting the video together. So now I've got this wonderful, beautiful piece of creativity that all started from one word of empathy.
And those the photos as well, because I think that was what triggered. I can't remember who did your photos, Sam. Those beautiful photos. Was that Carly as well?
Yes, no, that was Becky, who's on here.
Oh,
So
brilliant!
Becky,
Those
thank
photos are
you.
gorgeous.
The photo shoot that you did with me in January, again, that was kind of my creativity and like stepping into doing something new.
Yeah.
In woods, in this beautiful forest, and just being natural and having fun and playing, and like found this branch and pushing it like a swing. So yeah, it was all, so everybody who's like created this jingle for me, it feels really special.
Yeah, because it was the leaves, it was the throwing the leaves, that's what made me think about bringing it to life. That and your absolute passion and desire to bring these children to life again through what you do. That was very much the sentence that I had. But I think so much credit to you, Sam, because I'm probably not going to ask other people to do things in their jingle. That's not really what I want to do, but I so wanted to do it with you. And you could have just said, "You're joking, aren't you? No chance." And I knew that you'd say yes and you'd go for it. And I think it's so important. And we talked about that, didn't we, with the process and the vulnerability from both sides, and the feeling of how does it sound versus what does it need to sound like, and does it need to sound perfect, because my singing is never perfect, but it's that versus the reality of bringing something to life, stepping out of your comfort zone. And I remember you saying, that's what I want to put across, that's what I'm doing, and it needs to be real. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. When you play it to those children, I reckon it's going to inspire them to just keep stepping out and realizing that you're going to help them to come to life, which is such a beautiful message.
Thank you so much, Carol. It really means a lot to have done this beautiful creative piece of work with you, and it's just the start, isn't it? But we won't say no more about that. That's for another day. Okay, so I feel that we've kind of like, would you say, gone in kind of a bit of a like started from when you were young to where you are now. So let's just look at it, what does the word creativity mean to you?
Interesting. So as you know, I love to ask this question on my podcast, but I never
Maybe
get
I've
asked it
heard
myself.
that. Oh well, I had to do that.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
My goodness. I think it's finding solutions. On one of my podcast episodes with a storyteller, we decided it meant creating hope. It's finding peace, understanding feelings. So much. It's so much. I mean, I don't think I've ever written as many poems as I have since I've had long COVID. I've used poetry every time I've not understood a particular feeling that I'm going through, and it helps me to process some. It really does. And for a lot of people, they'd say there's no way on earth that even thinking about writing a poem would help me to process, because it's so difficult. But it's just naturally what I do. It doesn't mean I'm a great poet. I just feel it. I can't help it. It's my comfort zone and my go-to and my healing, and my Christian faith is very much wrapped up in that creativity and believing that I know a creator God, and so he helps me through that and shows me things that otherwise maybe other people wouldn't see. It was never going to be a short answer, was it, Sam?
It doesn't matter. You could write a poem on it.
Probably.
Which
I have, but I probably need to write another one.
That brings me to kind of how I work as well with the children and young people, and it's almost like journaling in some ways. And because sometimes, like, and a lot of times, and adults as well, but particularly the children and young people, they find it so difficult to express feelings verbally.
Yeah.
And we know, don't we, that non-verbal communication is such a higher percent. I think it's about 93%, if I remember rightly. So it's about 93% of our communication. So why not use creative ways to express what's going on about you? So one of the things I do mention is journaling can be difficult because they just see that as writing. And I always say, I'm not giving you homework, it's not school. I've got to take them away from that school kind of side of it all. But sometimes if their brain is more that right side and they enjoy drawing and like doing art, but that's them blocks at the moment because of their own anxieties, then we go down, maybe let's do some writing or poetry. And so poetry, like what you're saying, it actually expresses so much. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be the rhyming ones, or it can be. It doesn't matter. But it's just getting out. It's just helping them releasing those pressures, what's going on. And I can totally get that for you, especially with like being so ill, with COVID, and then obviously you've had it more than once as well, haven't you? So, it's just like, oh, not again kind of thing. But being able to express through poetry what's going on for you, and what you said about like the bedtime stories when your son was little as well, that's almost poetry as well, isn't it? It's just kind of, and it's so powerful and so empowering as well to be able to like say something. And when you like write your poems, do you ever say them out loud to yourself, or or is it more sharing them?
Yeah, I often do. Sometimes I'll know if it's important to kind of perform it. Often I just kind of write it flat and then kind of post it on Instagram or something like that. But I'll know if I need to perform it. I had a very, very silly one about a broken teas made, and I needed to perform it because it was like a story, and it was long as well. And I think if people see 15 verses, they're like, there's no chance I'm going to read that. Whereas if you perform it, they've got no choice because they're watching you and you just kind of do it, and it's more interesting. But yeah, there's something very powerful about speaking it out.
Yeah, definitely. I also heard you say like you've got your faith and that really helps you. Would you say that that's kind of helped you in extreme difficult situations that like maybe poetry or your singing, your creative side hasn't helped you with?
I do think
a combination?
Yeah, I think it's very much together. So I would, when I'm the closest to God and I feel like I've got a really clear channel to listening to him, it will more often than not come out in song or poetry or something like that. It's very much like he's speaking to me as a creator rather than anything else. So the two kind of go together, which I love.
Yeah, that is lovely. That is so lovely. Okay, so I kind of feel like we've got a good picture of you. So where do you want to go next? Where's your next kind of your ambitions or almost dreams or desires? Or it doesn't have to be huge. It's like, where do you want to go with like your creativity? Where do you think it's going to take you next?
It's a hard question because I've been so poorly, and because for quite a long time I felt like so much had kind of been taken away.
Okay.
And it's hard to plan for the future when my health it really does stop me at times. And I never had that barrier before. But I love writing the jingles. My husband's waiting for me to get a multi-million-pound deal on writing a jingle. So anybody out there who's like a big branding advertising agency that want a jingle, please, we'd love to do that. And I love doing it so much, and I just find it so joyful. So I'd love to write a big jingle. I've always wanted to enter the Eurovision Song Contest. Every year I say, maybe this year I need to try. I think, well, I told my son the other day that he's going to have to enter the Junior Eurovision Song Contest, which he seems to think he's not going to, but he is.
He is.
He's got no choice. And I'd love to be able to get back to doing some in-person events with my choir, because I know they love that.
Yeah.
And be well enough to be able to commit to something, because at the moment committing to an actual live event is really difficult, because I just don't know how I'm going to be, which is a bit of a pain. And then I'd love my podcast to be endorsed by a few people that have got real influence, and just it gets to the right people. Because when you do a podcast, you don't want thousands of listeners so you can say, I've got thousands of listeners. You want thousands of listeners because your guests are flipping awesome and life-changing and inspirational, and you want as many people as possible to access that so they can then make a difference to others. And when you're a really little fish in an enormous pond, that is just what you are. We're just very little. But to have somebody that's, you know, really well known endorse it is a huge thing. So I would love that. Somebody, you know, have got real gravitas that says, I've listened to this and other people should listen to this. I'd love that too.
That sounds wonderful. So I heard you mention about your podcast, which I've listened to quite a few of them, and they are fabulous, and they're really they're inspiring, and they also make you think about things as well. So tell me a little bit about your podcast.
So the podcast is called The Raise Podcast, and it's based on what we call a raise word. So of course we've got no monopoly on the raise words, it's just a word, but it's a word that the guest really wants to discuss and talk about. So the one coming up this week is on self. And what we also do is we have a Facebook community group. And so we will look at self in the Raise community group all week. We'll ask different questions that people will kind of get into discussion about, like what's good about self, what's bad or challenging about self. And then the podcast kind of finishes it off. Every other week we have a guest that will talk about it. And the only question that I ever prep them with is, what does the word mean to you? But apart from that, it's a very free flow kind of conversation. We always have a kind of listener challenge at the end. And then I always write an on the spot poem. So 9 times out of 10, I have no idea what I'm going to say until I do it, which is always a bit scary. But it was really important to me that I had a totally creative aspect on the podcast, because it made it original, but it also meant that you know, I could kind of flow in what I was wanting to say to other people as well, and that was important to me. So we were on Spotify and Apple and other music platforms. So yeah, the Raise podcast, come and have a listen to us.
Please add all your links onto the page so that everybody can follow you who wants to. That would be lovely.
And are we going to post your video on there as well, so people can see your beautiful video?
Okay, then we will.
Yes, that we will.
Okay, we will. Yeah, we will. We're doing it. It's happening. That's what I say. It's like, it's happening. Yeah. That's my way of getting round.
We're going to get off here and Sam's going to go, right, I'm going to kill you now. You did that live.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
Well, as we're just kind of coming to the end of your wonderful journey, and I loved speaking to you. You just inspire me so much, but you just make me laugh as well. not in a bad way, but just lighten my spirits.
Sure.
And yeah, and I just feel we've got to know each other so much more recently that I think it's time for a cuppa as well, don't you?
Yeah, another one. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
A celebratory one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds good to me. Yeah, so as we kind of come to the end, you know, I would just kind of, similar to like what you do with your podcast. So I'll give you a choice, so you can either like say a poem or tips that might help like entrepreneurs, because that's what this is all about, entrepreneurs or people that are wanting to bring creativity into their life or their business, or a word just to kind of sum up what we've done today. And I'll give that choice to you, Carol.
Okay. So I was really prepared, but forgot about that bit. Totally forgot that I was doing that bit. Realised that probably all my poems are on my phone, and my phone is what I'm talking to you. So I'm quickly just having a look to see if I've got any poems to hand. Bear with. Oh, blimey. I don't know where I put them all. Podcast. Just bear with. Got something here called Peanut Butter. Oh, that's from Chantal Nogbu. She watches later on.
I remember
that's not a poem, unfortunately. It's
I'll share that.
I'm going to share that.
That one. Yes.
So it's not a poem. Maybe I should make a poem back, but I'm going to share about it because the reason that I have a thing about peanut butter is because I was talking about jingles, and I was saying it was like if you had the song about Wilkinson's peanut butter. So Wilkinson's peanut butter didn't exist, but if it did, and you said, the only words that anyone can mutter, go and get Wilkinson's peanut butter. So I was talking about this, and I was saying, and the brilliant thing about it is it gets stuck in your head, and then you're in Sainsbury's and you're muttering Wilkinson's peanut butter, and someone else says, oh, peanut butter, I need peanut butter, where's the peanut butter aisle? And you've immediately gone and sold some peanut butter to them. Or you're standing in the playground, and you know what us mums are like, we're always muttering random things under our breath, and someone else hears the talk about Wilkinson's peanut butter and says, oh, Wilkinson's peanut butter, I've never heard of that before. I could do with a different brand of peanut butter because my daughter's allergic to some of the oil in the other ones, and you get talking about it. And what happened was I was saying this in a group, and then the brilliant Chantal Nogbu, we were having a conversation, and she said, Carol, I dreamt about peanut butter last night after you talked about it, and it made me want to wake up and get a peanut butter sandwich. And my thing from that is getting your message into someone else's head, whether you're a business or whether you're not, and you've just got something important to say to the world, it matters. If you can find what you want to say to the world and put it in a way that will get into someone else's head, then that's when you start to, what we said right at the beginning, make a difference to others. So think about what you want to say to the world, whether you're a business or not, it doesn't matter. Decide how you're going to say it in the simplest way possible, and then share it. It's really important. Do what Sam did, step out of your comfort zone, and share it, because people need messages of hope and love and inspiration and all the things that Sam's bringing and what she's doing. We need that. We need that in the world right now. So please do that. Think of a message that's going to change the world. Think of something simple to say about it, and then share it with other people. I'm going to go now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carol. I think that is wonderful. Giving me goosebumps. That's just so lovely. I love it. I love peanut butter. It just like brings me to like your earworms, which are just fantastic. So yeah, so thank you.
I do not sell peanut butter. Don't come on the Raise page and ask for peanut butter. Raise does not have peanut butter. There's lots of different brands of peanut butter out there. Raise does not have one.
Well, there's always a start. There's always a try with it.
No.
Well, it's been so lovely having you as my first guest on Let's Talk About Creativity today, Carol. Oh, it's just been a wonderful, a bit less than an hour because we had a bit of a
but
technical
we found creative solutions, so we did well on that.
Got there. we got there in the end. Exactly. Keep trying.
Thank you for the people watching to have the patience to come back and watch us anyway.
Definitely so. Yeah, it's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. It's been lovely catching up with you again, Carol. As I say, you just keep my spirits so high. I look forward to when I see you again soon. But for now, thank you so much. So thank you everybody for joining today. You have made this so beautiful for me, and I just, that's what happens when you've got your phone on, that people just start ringing. Luckily I've got the earphones in so nobody can hear. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so thank you everybody for joining today. It's made it really extra special for me. And say thank you to my beautiful guest, Carol Barwick. We'll add all the links in, so if you're interested in joining choir or having a jingle, a business jingle, which I would totally recommend, or listening to her podcast, then you'll be able to find out all that information. My next one at the moment is on the 16th of June with Danny Louise Smith, and that will be Let's Talk About Creative Businesses. So I'm so excited to talk about that one as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here for today. Just to say, anybody who joins later, just join with #replay. And I will see you all again soon. Thank you so much, Carol, and I will see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Sam, take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.